My co-founder was enchanted the whole idea of repetitive learning. And he was pretty surprised that not that many people use it. He was like, let's build an app. We recognized that only the best students of the class were using our app. The goal is to help those who are in need. So we pivoted to schools. The promise them is that we are going to raise retention rates and lower exam failure rates. So over 92% of students who are using our classroom are engaging with our app daily. You have to be intellectually honest. You have to be honest to yourself what you're capable of. You have to communicate also in an honest way with your co-founder. Because most of the startups die not because of money or business, but because of the lack of communication between co-founders. And be brave. Yesterday doesn't have to shape who you are. It just means what you did. Tomorrow you can be anything and do anything.
Before we dive in, I want you to share why did I start the Edge of Impact podcast in the first place. Ever since winning a WSA award in 2016 myself, I have been fascinated by this community of change makers who are using digital technology to make this world a teeny better for all of us. So the Edge of Impact is my way of helping these change makers to amplify their impact. And therefore, I invite you to help me on this mission by sharing these podcasts, telling about the stories to your friends, your colleagues, your relatives, because that's how we can scale and make their impact amplified all around the world. Thank you. And now let's go to the episode.
Version 1.
Version 1, we will not be redoing this. It's 30 minutes minimum.
All right.
But anyways, it's very interesting. What was the insight that led you to start what you're doing?
So, first of all, my co-founder came up with the whole idea since he was neuroscience major and he was in medical school. So he was learning about all the stuff, how humans like memorize stuff and how they learn. So he was like enchanted the whole idea of repetitive learning. And he was pretty surprised that not that many people use it. And he couldn't answer why.
As in repetitive learning, so that if we see or learn something many times, we will
Yes. So
better.
if you see something for the first time, cool. Second time it sticks. Third time you come back. But it's not always just about repetition. It's about also recalling it. So these are these two methods, which are active recall and spaced repetition. The active recall, just what I told you, is like when I'm explaining you something or I'm teaching you something, I'm pulling it out of my brain. It's actively recalling. And passive recall is when you're just reading or watching a lecture. That's not active. You are not like moving the same engines in your brain as you would do.
You're not pulling it out, right?
Yeah,
It's
you're
kind of
not.
there.
And like the deed of pulling it out makes it more stick. So my co-founder, he was researching about all these in the US. And yeah, he was like, let's build an app. Let's build an app because I couldn't find one which suits my needs.
As in like, does the learning and teaching in a way that addresses?
Yeah, because there's a big problem that these methods, active recall and spaced repetition, put together, these are flashcards, pretty much. That's the best use case to use these methods. But back then, it was 2.5 years ago, there were no such apps where you could just make flashcards in a very fast and automated way. So we found a way. First, it was voice. So voice recording. So you just recorded what's the function of basal ganglia, and you just recorded also the answer to this question. And you could also just learn while you were voking because you were just listening to this.
So essentially, you're basically teaching yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That was the first app. Then we moved towards like written flashcards. But how can we make a flashcard to be fast when it's written? First, it was with like text detection. So when you upload a diagram, you can hide all of the or any of the information which is on the diagram. Like there is the diagram of heart, and there are some information at the parts, and we automatically covered those words. So you have to guess it. And so that was the first like automated version of flashcards that we made.
Okay, so but before we go deeper into how it works and all the nitty gritty, so your co-founder was studying in the US.
Yes, correct.
And what were you up to? How did you come together? And
We are very good friends from our teen years. We were on two different paths. So he was in medicine, he was doing that, and I was in finance. So two very, very different fields, but very, very, very good friends. And I think we always had these catch-ups, like monthly catch-ups, whether he was in the US or back home to Hungary, because we are from Hungary, Budapest. And we always had like coffee or dinner. And those times it was like, hey, I'm just starting this idea, and do you want to join? First, I was like, I guess some other things to do, so I didn't join. But then he came back, we developed MVP, and then I joined, and they already had some traction. So we joined. I joined the team a bit later, but before the main traction, I would say.
And how long did it take between that? Okay, so I have this idea, I'm working on it. If you know the whole story,
Yeah, sure.
To actually taking an action and building something like an MVP, for example.
Yeah. So when building the MVP, I mean, there must be a developer, right?
Yeah.
So
Good.
yeah. So developer.
But who knows? Maybe neuroscientists now know how to develop too.
No. Maybe next year with AI. Who knows? Like Sam Altman
Yeah.
is talking about AGI is coming next year. So we never know, right?
You never know.
Yeah. Developer was just hired outside the company to do the first app, and that app was distributed alongside schools, also where he was learning and where his friends were learning. So it's like organic growth in the first phase.
Wait, so like developing an MVP, but then
Yeah.
also getting it into the hands of students.
Yeah, sure. And they started to use it, and then as soon as usage went up, like a small financing round could be built around it within the engine invest.
So it's flashcards for adults,
It's flashcards for students.
for students.
I mean,
Doesn't
adult
matter.
students.
The-
Like
Mhm.
it's usually higher education, so that's why I told you adults,
Yeah.
adult students. We are pretty much focused on higher ed, like colleges, universities, and specifically on science. Because science is something which has to be memorized, because there are so many factual knowledge, and factual is the part we should pay attention, because those are the best kind of information which can be learned by flashcards. It's not business. It's not that like
Literature.
yeah.
How do flashcards work? Because I've never used flashcards and I have no clue, to be honest.
Never.
No.
Those can be used for a lot of things.
Okay.
I mean, I use it for a lot of language learning.
Okay.
I speak some foreign languages, like German or Chinese, or also English is not my mother language, and I use flashcards for all these a lot.
Okay.
And so it's not a big deal to have a question and answer it and just check whether you answered it right. But the art of this is the time when you repeat it, and we make sure with a notification, for example, that hey, now this is time to revise these 20 flashcards of yours.
But so there are a lot of flashcard companies. There
Yeah,
are a
there
lot
are
of
plenty of,
flashcards, right?
yeah.
Like online and offline, all of this.
Mainly online, yeah.
Mainly online. Okay. There is no flashcards that people.
There are, but I mean,
But that's like.
people are not even reading, like they are listening to audiobooks rather than buying a book nowadays, right? Like
Yeah.
like Blinkist, it's
lot,
a very,
yeah.
very good company, and
Yeah.
they are doing a great job to transforming the reading culture. So also the flashcards.
I'm a loyal customer of Blinkist.
All right.
Over
Me
800
as well.
books, yeah.
Cool. And it's pretty much the same with flashcards, like with everything else. So yeah, there are plenty of flashcard companies out there, and the first differentiator factor was the automated diagram feature that we had. So you just upload your picture of the diagram, and we detect all.
When
the
you say
types.
diagram, what do
Yeah.
you mean?
It's
I
like
mean, diagram, what do you mean?
Like usually science diagrams is like when the heart is depicted on the picture and there are arrows which goes out like, hey, this is this part, this is this part, this is the function. So you just upload a picture like that and we find the text and we cover it with a small box. So by just one upload and one click, you made like 20 flashcards out of the single picture. So if you come back and you will be able to guess the hidden box on the picture, and then you flip it, on your phone, and you see the answer. And you can rate your knowledge, whether you guess it right or not. And if you guess it right, it's done. You know that. If they come back sometime, but not tomorrow. But if you guess it wrong, you tell, I don't know, if they come back the day after. So it's personalized. So we attach ourselves to each person's unique memory. We pay attention to that. And it's still not a big deal. There are many other flashcards like that. Then we developed AI. So we had AI, we still have AI flashcards. But all these were for students and not for schools or teachers or any other stuff. They're only for students. And we gained some traction, like more than 20,000 students are and we're using our app monthly. We have
just like through organic sharing.
There was like some times how we got there and some funding and we some marketing actions as well. Like we are a startup, we are doing these things, but we reached that level like 20,000 plus monthly active users worldwide. But we recognize that only the best students of the class were using our app. Only the best of the best.
Well, 20,000 of the best. You have a very wealthy kind of brain power.
Using your... The thing is that it is, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to help those who are in need for these methods. And that's when we wait, this is not used. We are just used by people who would use other flashcards anyway. So how do we reach the others, the 95% of the class who are not using that much effort to learn, to find flashcard apps? So we were like, there should be a push from the teacher side, from the school side. And these thoughts were happening early this year. So we pivoted to schools. So we developed a new app beside the current app we had. We developed a new app and started to reach out to schools, to science schools, to universities, and so on. So we have the app now. We have a couple of pilot projects also with one of the leading medical schools in Europe, Semmelweis University. And there are over 1,000 students who are using and will be using from January our applications in this way, in the classroom way. We call it Voovo Classroom. So it's like all of the students are encouraged in the classroom to use these methods through our app.
Within the class time.
No. Within the class material, but outside of the class time. So it looks like there's a teacher. They upload the material, what they're going to learn throughout the semester, and also when. So we can create a perfect substitution of their material into our application. So we just pull every paragraph, every note into flashcards and quizzes. And we show these flashcards and quizzes to the students after each class. So you learned about heart anatomy this class, then you're gonna have the heart anatomy chapter in the application. And they can memorize the most important parts of that class. And also this facilitates that knowledge base, which is required by the teacher for the examination. So teacher can see also the progress of the student and they can analyze whether they are lagging behind so that before students would fail, they can prevent that. It's like showing each brain of the students to the teacher.
Are you finding that there are a lot of competition for entering into schools these days? Because being, with WSA for quite a long now, I have seen so many completely different types of products
Yeah.
that are trying to get into school, maybe mostly like primary or secondary school, not so much the universities and kind of like the science, but there's a lot also of that. So what is your key selling point that they should choose? And it might not even be the same type of product, but still it's the budget of the school, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the teacher can't bring like 50 different or like 5 different tools. So how do you address that? Like, what's the process there?
So there are many different types of schools.
Mhm.
There are public schools, private schools, schools that are open to innovation, schools that are not that much open to innovation.
And by the way, are we talking countries or are you just like looking global? Like, how is your, because
Like
countries are
our-
also very different in terms of
Also
many of them.
countries, yeah, also countries. Currently, we are having pilot projects in Europe, but we are actively engaging with schools in the US and also Southeast Asia.
Okay.
I just came from Singapore. We went to New York last month, so we are doing our homework to discover these markets and talk to schools there, universities. And what we see is that there are two extremes. One school is like they never heard about innovation. We don't really want to go in that stuff. It's very hard. It's very long time to convince them and so on. And there's another extreme, like for example, what I saw in Singapore, that there is a university that they are having a whole team assigned only for e-learning applications. And so the teacher can like discover an app and teacher can just bring it up on the meeting and the whole management team will focus on that, whether they want to implement it or not. And there are also other types of schools like in the US, like they are running competitions. They are holding like bi-yearly meetings of the management board where applications are pitching to those schools. We also did that.
Okay.
And it's very diverse, I would say. It's never the same to reach out to school and to get like featured with them. It's always different. It's always hard. But I mean, that's the beauty of it, right?
That's a nice challenge.
Yes, but the unique selling proposition. So what we say to school and what we promise them is that we are going to raise retention rates and lower exam failure rates. That's what we promise, because that's what we can do with this method and it's proven.
Have you like exactly proven? Can you tell me more about how you proved it? Because I assume that with the 20,000 monthly users that you had, you extracted so many metrics and so many understanding of.
Yeah, we had like a metric that they got better grades. That's the metric, but you know, that's a different like part of our app. What I'm talking about right now is the classroom part.
Yeah,
So,
I understand. But like,
yeah.
so you can still transfer the learnings
I mean,
from.
I mean, for the first pilot we had with the medical school I mentioned, of course, we extracted some data of those students. Like, yeah, they were doing better based on their replies. So let's check it out in your school. And after that, it's much easier to say to other schools, like there's already like 1 or 2 or 3 other schools who used it throughout the semester. And those students and those teachers reported better metrics, better engagement, better consultation hours. So that's like the user feedback side. And also they got better grades. So it's a no-brainer, I think. And I mean, for a public school, it's not that important to get a higher retention. I mean, it is for leaderboard across the schools, you know, who's the best number 1 school in the country and so on. But rather focusing on private schools, private institutions, they are like profit driven. So it really does matter whether someone sticks along or not. And we can raise that pretty high. So the average loss a university generates in a year is in the US is $9.8 million by not focusing on retention of the academic part of the students. I mean, they are focusing on, but still it can be enhanced.
Yeah. But I mean, considering how much they charge per student,
Yeah,
it's kind of like
course.
not too many students, really.
I'm not talking about
Yeah.
like a very normal public school. I'm talking about like more higher end private schools.
Yeah. No, of course, like it's still the money that goes out and is
Yeah.
going somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly. What are your key interesting findings that you're super surprised about, either the learning process of the students when you got the product out into so many hands of the people, or through the schools now as well?
So throughout the schools, we were afraid that when the first class arrives, the teacher has the first class and has a pitch. This is this semester. Thank you for coming. We are going to use this app. We were afraid that this would be a push from the top towards the students. And they were like, no, I don't want to use that. Why would I? Maybe it was the first reaction of theirs, but after 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, of course, we talked with a bunch of them and we have a close WhatsApp group. So it's very natural conversations with them. The students who were never using these methods, they started to love it. And we were surprised, truly. This was a push from the top, from the teacher and the management side. And the students reacted in a very friendly and honest way. And they also took the responsibility to say, yeah, it's much better now what I did before. So over 92% of students who are using our classroom, who are in the classes where we are present in the schools, of those students, 92% are engaging with our app daily.
Nice.
So imagine there's a random class where we are implemented and almost every student are using our app daily.
Okay.
Also the majority who were not before. And this was big learning, a huge surprise for us. And this is it feels like an impact.
Yeah. But it's also that authority, right? Authority and the peer pressure. Because if your teacher told you and then you see that this guy next to you is doing well with grades, whoa, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. But tell me about the metrics, the kind of learning improvement metrics. What have you measured and how do you measure? What are the results?
So number one, I think the best for a startup is user feedback. Just written or spoken feedback. That's where we can iterate and learn the most. Of course, we have data of how they perform on their exams, or data from the teacher, how they perform their consultation hours in universities, especially science and medicine. They have these consultation hours where a teacher tries to help students, whether they know the stuff or not. So we have metrics from these, but these are not the hard data, right? So the others are from surveys that we run with the students and with teachers as well, but with the students, did your grades improve? Or if you failed this subject, not last year, did you get the exam this year? So we have questions like these. It's pretty hard to measure very data-driven side. It's pretty hard. So it's much more user feedback than solid data. But of course, we are getting exam metrics telling the teacher, hey, you also had a class from last year and the year before, and how is now? Did it change? It got better. So those are the data we are looking at. Okay.
And do you still have both products, or are you fully focusing on
Very good question. We still do have both products. We made a mistake or not the mistake, I don't know yet if it's turned out, that we focus on both. So we were in the beginning of this year, we don't want to lose those customers and we don't want to shut it down. So we just keep it going. We don't.
Is it paid, sir? App for the users?
It's an application.
Yeah, but is it paid?
It's like a freemium model. So you can use it for free, but after some time, not for some time, the number of flashcards, you have to pay for it. In this model. But it's the number of flashcards you can create is pretty high. It's 500 items now.
Yeah, but it's up to you to decide, no?
If you want to go after 500, you have to pay.
Yeah, but for you as a business to decide that you will charge after 100, not 500, that's also your.
We also did that. But the problem with that is there are, in startups, there are these aha moments when you are like user and starts onboarding, and you realize the potential it has. And we see that we have two. So the first, in the B2C part, the first is that user can create a flashcards in seconds. That's the aha moment first. But the second is when they realize they really learn it. And it takes much longer.
Yeah.
It's not the first second.
So it might be that they don't pay, they don't fill it out.
And it won't be after 50 flashcards either. Maybe it won't be even after 100. So you were like, but it's so high to 500 that we make sure that they get their second aha moment. And after then they stick. So yeah, that's about the B2C. And so early this year, running two of like the development of the B2B app, and we were not developing that much in the B2C side, maybe mainly developing B2B side. And right now we see that we don't really have that much like potential in the B2C. And that's for one reason, which is like public AI. Like everyone can just plug in GPT and they have the AI stuff on their app.
Science students, so most likely they are scientific enough to
figure
it out.
And as I told you, like those students are monsters. They are learning, going after the newest apps.
But
and
how
so
do
on.
you actually, how do you know that you were working only with the best of the best? How did you realize that?
How did we? It's throughout user meetings. Like on a weekly basis, we have like 20 user meetings. So we know exactly who our users are.
Okay, so you were like, they are
This
all
is
too smart.
This is smart. Yeah. They are proactive.
Yeah.
They are not like the ones who are, I don't want to learn Irish movie. No, they are not that one. They have a crazy driven. So this like attitude generates a very high competition from the demand side. And the supply side can easily react because plugging in an AI is very easy.
Yeah.
So that's something that you realize that we are not that competitive there anymore.
Okay.
But we rather are competitive much more on the school side, in the classroom side, when we are working with schools and teachers and implementing it to the whole. And that's why we are moving away from the B2C app a bit even more than we did early this year. So we are running some experimentations still, whether we can find a very niche segment of users like biology, anatomy, and inside biology, anatomy and iPad users. Like it's very niche. It's super niche. But we are not putting that much effort in it. We are not putting like development effort into it. We are putting all of that.
So marketing effort, right? That's
not that much.
Like
we are putting only for the experiments. Like we are doing weekly experimentations of all of us, all of our assumptions. Like we have an idea like, oh, maybe like moms or like moms could be a very good use case for this. Like maybe moms will buy our app because like we had a couple of mothers calling us up like, hey, they are using our app for doing flashcards for their child. I'm like, that's an experimentation.
Yeah.
Let's try it out. Like, let's spend like 5 hours calling up like people, like scheduling meetings and talking to moms, whether they will buy a product, use our product or not, or whether they use anything similar. So we have these experiments, but nothing that much resource into B2C, rather the B2B now, because that's where we see we can generate a bigger potential. As I told you, having all of the students from the class pretty much using their app is an impact.
Yeah.
And impact drives potential.
Yeah. And also that kind of looks better on your bottom line and business model, I assume.
Because then, I mean, we are not closing down our B2C app.
Yeah.
We are not, it's running. And it's possible that after like a lot of students in the classroom feature, we can like show them also we have this product.
Yeah.
So we can transform also the mindset of all the students who are using our app in the classroom that they should proactively learn.
Yeah, and it's kind of like transferring that behavior that they acquired of using flashcards in more areas of their life. So when it comes to technology, what role does that play, especially now that AI came along and it's kind of like super easy to plug in? What's your take on it?
Two. First is that we humans, we pretty much like tagging everything. We tag this glass that this glass is for drinking.
Yes.
We tag another glass
Yeah.
that is for storing flowers in the water. We tag another glass to drink tea, to drink schnapps,
Absolutely.
to drink beer. We also take another glass to just bring our water with ourselves. But those are pretty similar products. We just tag them. And this is the same with technology and AI, in my opinion. And this is going to be the same always. Of
In
course,
what sense?
you can make anything with ChatGPT. It's like a glass for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you are not going to drink water and beer and schnapps and coffee and tea from the same glass.
Unless you saw that in your society throughout the whole time that people do that, you know.
Unless.
If you're in a village where there is one glass and you drink everything.
It's very unlikely that people transform to this culture.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
in all of the other aspects of our lives, these tags are becoming much more frequent.
But also, like, you know, ChatGPT is not the AI. It's just a brand of AI.
Yeah, of course. So
it's kind of like,
yeah, I mean, I can put an example with Gemini or Anthropic or anything else, but I just want to get to the point that, of course, you can make flashcards with AI. You just write into the chat. Of course, you can make like a podcast from a book by yourself, but people are not that proactive.
Mm-hmm.
People are not that proactive, and they indeed really like when the tool is put on the table.
Mm-hmm.
This is for podcast. This is for flashcards. This is for reading.
Schnapps and stuff.
Like, I'm sure you could find like other audiobooks on YouTube, not Blinkist, but it just feels natural and pretty smooth to use Blinkist because it's there. Like all of the small features, which is like language, type for book, or you can just stop it and continue it. Is all of that is implemented. So I think that because of this, the second part is that UX and UI becomes much more important in today's world than the technology behind itself.
Mm-hmm.
So how you make flashcards, what's the process in the app, how you phrase it, that this app is for this kind of flashcards, how you do that. Because eventually anyone can make anything these days with AI, but is it really the case that people want to do that?
Yeah, but it's also like we can take an analogy from a non-digital world, right? Yeah. Anybody can go buy the soil in a place, in a cup, right? And then plant something.
Yeah.
But
they do not. They rather buy the cabbage in the shop. Yeah.
Exactly. I had another example because last summer, I wanted to experiment with like, okay, I'll use AI to create some products and go on Etsy, what's trending and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's digital art, printables. You just sell a image that you generate with AI and you sell it for somebody to buy it and stick it on their wall. Like take it to the printing shop and stick it on the wall. Yeah. And like
NFTs.
That's NFTs still live in a digital world. But what I mean is that like on Etsy, people are selling actually printables that other people buy and go and print.
Really?
And I'm like, if you can figure out how to go and print, why don't you produce the image yourself?
Yeah.
You know, why would you pay for it?
Yeah.
But it's a huge business, right?
That's
exactly what
I mean, that's how we emerged as a society when we were doing bartering back like thousands of years ago. Like people realized that they cannot do all of the
chores.
all of the things which satisfy their needs and wants in one time, so that they outsource.
Yeah.
That's how we all started.
Specialization, right?
Yes.
Like it's kind of the thing.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. What is the most exciting for you and your team when you're looking to the future? What are you super excited about, like for the future of Voovo or Voovo? How do you pronounce it?
Voovo.
Voovo. What is the most exciting thing for your team?
For my team?
Looking outward. You can say for yourself as well, obviously.
It's a good question because we only had our yearly planning this week together with the whole team, 2 days together, brainstorming, eating together, having fun. And I think what drives us is to really multiplicate the impact that we had in our first pilots. So we know it works, and it's only up to us whether we can convince other schools as well that they should also like make an impact with this. I think that's one of the most energizing and convincing part.
And then you say impact, you mean the kind of like memory improvement in marks, or which part of the
turn around the culture in the classroom? Like diminish the gap between the good performing students and the bad performing students, that they are learning together on the same app and they are on one page.
Okay.
Pretty much this.
That's interesting.
For me personally, I mean, that's a team wise because we are all working towards this goal to like.
So essentially you're bridging a gap of taking not so well performing students to a completely higher level.
to enhancing their performance.
Yeah.
And to changing their learning culture.
And is there enough of is there like the upside to the good students the same? Because obviously for taking an average or bad student to like that high level.
Yeah. Like an average or bad student, like they can perform 2x better. But an already good student and a good performing student, they will just maybe perform the same or a little bit better.
But more efficiently.
But it's like you cannot like always focus on the top performers when you're about to like enhance the whole society, like even if it's just a classroom, like to also build them up together. So you have to start from the bottom.
But I still think that, like the efficiency increase in the top performing students, like if I had, to spend, 5 hours, now I spend 2 hours learning something, the same thing.
Yeah. If they are not using us already.
Yeah, if they were not using
it.
Well, 20,000 students around the world is still pretty small.
It's very
probably they were not.
Yeah, much more space to.
Yeah, well, let's come back to your exciting thing.
My exciting. I'm pretty young. I'm 23 years old, and it's very exciting to do such a things at this early age, and to also my peers as students, other students, like building an app for them.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like this helper for others already in my age group as well. And it feels just great.
Nice.
To help. And on another side, it's an amazing experience. And I can see many ways where my journey can go out of this experience and knowledge that I gain here.
Absolutely. Learning all the time.
Yes.
If we touch quickly on business side of things, how many people are you now? How are you funded? What's the outlook?
That's correct. So 1 year ago, 14 months ago, sorry, we already raised a small angel round of 70,000 euros. And so it was 2 years ago, but 14 months ago, we started to raise our pre-seed round. It didn't go well. We started in September. We reached out to people, to investors. We have a couple of thousand users. We want to do this. We are starting it on AI. They were like, good, come back later. We were putting harder work, so we went abroad to conferences. We talked to other investors. They're like, yeah, very good product, but come back later. And I remember we also had an investor from somewhere from Europe, and we already had the last meeting, the last of the last, when they go through when the legal team came and went through our stuff, the IP and stuff, and they also declined us. And but during this time, we started applying to an accelerator program called Techstars, because we got in contact with the managing director there, and we started applying. But it's a long process. It's like 2 months to apply to a program like Techstars. It takes a lot of presentation, a lot of meetings. So we were doing on the side that of fundraising, and it was our greatest aspiration to get into Techstars because it would solve all of our financial problems. So did we, unexpectedly. We got into Techstars last year, this time, or December. And thank you very much. And from that, investors' attitude changed. Valuation went up, ticket sizes went up, and the attitude to invest in us also went up.
Okay.
So it was much easier to raise a round with Techstars on our back, and we raised over €500,000 with that round overall by Techstars, by Hungarian VCs as well. And we also went through the accelerator program of Techstars. It was in Torino, Italy. It was 3 months. We co-founders, we moved together in a flat. We were living there together, doing the business. We had an office space. We had also a lot of workshops and also other founders. There were in total 12 startups in the batch. So it was a huge professional growth. So with that, we became a team of 7. I mean, I think that it's a good size of a team for a startup like this. It's pretty efficient. No communication is lost, and we can work still efficiently.
That's the agile optimal team number,
Yeah,
right?
I think
7.
so. Yeah. Around it.
Around this, yeah.
Yeah, around. So we are a team of 7, and about the traction we had is we have over 22,000 monthly active users on the B2C side, and we have 4 pilot projects coming up from January, so from 2 months from now.
Yeah. How instrumental would you say Techstars was for switching the business model and also like getting intros into your?
It was instrumental not only for that, but only for the funding. Like, if we didn't get into Techstars, it wouldn't be here. I mean, of course we didn't, but it was a huge part of our story. Also personally, professionally, as a team, as a company, as a funding. Like when you have the Techstars badge on your forehead, everyone is likely to talk to you. Like, it's a very good instance.
It's like needs this label, right?
Yeah, it's tech.
It's a label.
Yeah. Like we still have our biggest competitor in the market. It's a huge flashcard app. And we reached out to the CEO. I did, just with a message like, hey, I really want to learn more about your product. We are just in Techstars. Please help us. And he replied in 5 minutes. And that's a superpower of Techstars, I think.
Okay.
And it still remains.
Yeah. So what would you recommend social entrepreneurs or startup founders from your experience to date?
Command, I mean.
Advise or
It's
comment?
a very good question.
Just, maybe like 2, 3 things that are on your mind as the most important things for entrepreneurs. Then they're going through the process of founding startups.
You have to be intellectually honest. You have to be honest to yourself, what you're capable of,
Okay.
and what you're not.
Okay.
You have to admit when you make a mistake, and you have to communicate also in an honest way with your co-founder. Because most of the startups, they go bankrupt or they like die, not because of money or business, but because of the lack of communication between co-founders. So intellectually honest. If you're
That's
co-founder,
awesome one. I've not heard about that before, so that's great.
so intellectually honest. Second can be communication. You got to communicate, and not just with your co-founders. You also have to learn how to communicate with anyone. Because we have deals, we also have Techstars, we have university corporations, and very good mentors. And they were only away for one conversation. So communicate well, go to conferences, talk to everyone you see, and be brave.
Nice.
And brave in a way, like, tomorrow you can be anyone, anything. You can do anything. So yesterday doesn't have to shape who you are. It just means what you did. But tomorrow you can be anything and do anything. So this like agile bravery you develop, you start to feel like you can be anyone, and there's no like limit. So intellectually honest, to yourself, to your co-founders. Communicate well with your co-founders and on events, very important, on conferences, be aggressive, go to anyone, and be brave about the decisions as you make as a company, whether you can pivot in the next year or not. Because eventually it will come down how reactive you are to the data points you gathered.
Yeah. And they all connect so well with each other. Like they just kind of like really a triangle, right?
They are. I like that.
Yeah, triangles that enforce each other. Yeah. Last question. If you have a magic wand and one wish, what would you wish for like, within your business activity? Like the area that you work with.
For our business?
Not necessarily your business, but the whole field that you are operating in.
But the whole field?
Yeah.
Education technology, you mean?
Any, like whatever you choose. It's a magic wand.
What
What I mean is like, not like, oh, I want a big house and stuff like that. But like for the area that you operate in, it can be anything.
Personal or company level?
Yeah, it's up to you. Now it's a tough decision.
A magic wand would be have a room of 100 people who are fulfilling all of my needs and who are professionals in all of the areas I need throughout my next year. And if I could tag those 100 people in a room and open the door and talk to each of them, that would save me like 5 years. I don't want to wish big. I don't want to like wish down the stars because that's not the way. I want to make I want to work for that.
Okay.
I just want to help them right here.
Okay.
Because I think what an entrepreneur does is they are looking for these 100 people throughout their lives, but they can be anywhere. And if I could like list who do I need and put it in the room.
Yeah. And you need a lot of energy to talk to 100 people on a
I have.
quality way.
I have.
I'm sure you do. It was a pleasure. Very nice
Thank
talking
you very
to
much
you.
for having me.
And with that, I want to invite you to follow Voovo, share their story, and if you happen to work in a university or know anyone working in a university, you will find their contact details on our website. Let's help Voovo team to bridge the gap between well and not so well performing university students to increase their grades and reduce exam fail rates. On that note, next week, I will be bringing you another story from the edge of impact directly from Poland. I will be talking to Michael, a co-founder whose passion for impact drove him and his team to start Language Sub Ukraine the minute full-scale invasion of Russia broke out on Ukraine. Their mission was and still is to help integrate the many refugee students moving to Poland by teaching them Polish language. See you at the Edge of Impact next week.